Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take that pile of sources, you've got the articles, the research, maybe just scribbled notes, and we really boil it down for you.
Yeah, we aim to give you that ultimate shortcut.
Exactly. Our mission is to pull out just the most crucial, high-impact bits of knowledge. We want you walking away feeling, not just generally informed, but really sharp on the specifics, surgically precise even.
Right. We skip the filler. It's all about getting the highest return on your valuable learning time.
So today we're doing something a bit different, a linguistic deep dive. This is specifically for those of you who've, let's say, got the basics of English down pat, but now you're really hungry for that native speaker precision.
We're targeting the little things.
Yeah, those small, really common structures and phrases, the ones that often trip up even pretty good intermediate speakers.
The things that stop speech from sounding completely natural.
Totally. And this isn't about reviewing boring grammar rules. This is like custom-tailored knowledge designed for a quick boost in fluency.
We're leveling up your ability to communicate with more nuance, more speed.
That's absolutely right. Looking at the source material you provided, we noticed patterns, frequency, error rates, and four specific linguistic elements really jumped out. They seemed like high-priority targets.
Yeah.
Because mastering these particular structures or this specific set of phrasal verbs, it just gives you an instant leap forward in clarity, in tone.
An instant leap. I like that.
So our mission today is to really analyze the core function, look at the different ways you use each one in conversation. We've broken this deep dive down into, well, 3 main areas based on those findings.
Okay.
First, we're going to tackle a structural pair. It's fundamental to how we talk about effort. It's easy to and it's difficult to.
Okay, the effort framework. Got it.
Second, we dive into a really powerful phrasal verb, one that can be tricky. Give up, the verb of cessation.
Yes, phrasal verbs. Always a challenge. Always. And finally, we're going to try and conquer a frequent source of confusion, especially when talking about movement and travel. The essential 4. Get on, get off, get in, and get out.
Oh, the gets of transportation. Okay, yes, those definitely need unpacking. Let's get started. So, we're beginning with the framework of effort. This structure, it's difficult to, you say it's fundamental, and I agree, you hear it constantly. But maybe we overlook the subtlety, like why it's constructed that way.
Exactly. You probably already use it, maybe without even thinking too hard about it. But understanding why it works so effectively, that's the key to truly mastering it and using it with confidence.
So what's so brilliant about it? You mentioned speed and applicability.
Well, yes. It lets you quickly drop in a judgment about an activity, right? How feasible it is, how simple, or maybe how complex it feels. And crucially, it does this without making the sentence feel heavy or all about, your personal feelings or struggles.
Ah, okay. It's more objective sounding.
It frames it as an evaluation of the task itself. It summarizes experience or expectation very efficiently. And the reason it pulls this off so smoothly is down to the grammar, specifically the use of the dummy subject, it.
The dummy subject, it.
Right.
This structure is, by its nature, impersonal. When you start with it, you're immediately telling the listener the focus is on the action, that infinitive verb coming up, not on who's doing it.
Okay, so the focus shifts away from the person.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It becomes a statement about the task itself, almost like a general truth. Think about it this way. You could say something more academic sounding, like, to follow this recipe is easy.
Sounds a bit stiff.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
While it's grammatically correct, it feels clunky. It puts all the weight on that infinitive phrase right at the start.
Yeah, it delays the main point, which is easy.
Exactly. But when you use it's easy to follow this recipe, boom. You give the listener the subject, the recipe following, and the judgment easy, almost simultaneously.
Much smoother for conversation. Much smoother. That it acts like a placeholder, just clearing the path for the important info to land quickly and naturally.
That distinction right there. The smooth flow versus the kind of clunky, front-loaded emphasis that's a really useful nugget. It's all about that conversational rhythm, isn't it?
It really is.
Okay, so let's focus specifically on it's easy to for a moment. When we use this, what are we signaling? Low effort.
Yeah, low effort, straightforward accomplishment, minimal resistance needed. It sort of confirms the accessibility of whatever you're talking about.
Like the instructions are clear or the task itself isn't demanding.
Right. It often suggests, implicitly, that pretty much anyone could manage it. So if we look at scenario 1 from the outline, describing a general skill or a task. This is its bread and butter. Imagine you're explaining, I don't know, some new software. You might want to reassure someone about the first step.
Right.
You say, okay, don't worry, it's easy to navigate the main dashboard.
Okay, so you're confirming the system's design is intuitive.
Exactly. The ease is presented as being inherent in the dashboard itself, not dependent on the user being some kind of genius. But where the structure really gets interesting, I think, is in scenario 2, the comparative context.
Comparing things.
We use it constantly for that, to contrast something with a previous, maybe harder task.
Give me an example.
Okay, say you just learned to drive, maybe in a complicated city with a stick shift.
Stressful.
Very. And now you're driving an automatic on a wide-open highway. You'd naturally summarize that change by saying,
Wow, it's easy to drive on the highway compared to those downtown streets.
precisely. The structure handles that comparison so swiftly. It anchors the statement in the general ease of the current action relative to the past difficulty.
And something native speakers do all the time, which learners should pick up on, is modifying it. It's rarely just easy or difficult, is it?
That's a great point. We add nuance constantly.
You might say, actually, it's surprisingly easy to learn the ukulele. That surprisingly adds a layer.
It implies you expected it to be harder. Or you might say, oh, it's almost impossibly difficult to get tickets for that show.
Right. That shows how flexible the basic structure is.
Exactly. Adding adverbs like surprisingly, unbelievably, relatively, annoyingly, it allows the speaker to inject a really strong emotional or subjective feeling onto what starts as a more objective assessment of difficulty.
So it can be both objective and subjective depending on how you tweak it.
Precisely. It's very versatile.
Okay, so conversely then, when we switch to it's difficult too, the signal changes completely, right? High effort, complexity, maybe frustration.
Yes, the psychological weight shifts entirely, even though the grammatical structure, that impersonal it, stays the same. And we often see the structure used heavily for abstract challenges, conceptual difficulties. That's scenario 3.
Things that aren't about lifting heavy things, but more about thinking.
Exactly. Difficulties tied to mental processing, complexity, uncertainty, a financial analyst might say.
It's difficult to predict market trends.
Perfect example. They're summarizing the inherent volatility, the limits of prediction models. It's stated almost like a universal truth about predicting things in that specific environment.
And that contrasts nicely with scenario 4, the physical challenges.
Right. If you're trying to move house, wrestling with furniture.
You might grunt, oof, it's difficult to lift that heavy box alone.
Yes. And by using the impersonal it, you're subtly framing it as an accepted general truth about the box's weight. It's heavy for anyone, not just highlighting your own personal lack of strength.
That's interesting. It gives the statement a bit more authority, makes it less about personal complaint.
It adds that layer of objectivity, even when talking about a very physical, personal struggle. And we can take this even a step further. We can use this structure to talk about things that are almost impossible not to do, often using negative constructions.
You know what I mean?
Like, it's difficult to not laugh when she tells that particular story.
Okay, so the difficulty is in resisting the action.
Exactly. Grammatically, it's a bit more complex with the double negative implied, but it's a very common, high-frequency way to describe an irresistible urge or reaction.
So understanding that the structure can handle these subtle negative twists shows a higher level of precision.
It really does. It shows you understand the core function deeply enough to manipulate it effectively.
Okay, so we've established that it's easy, difficult too. Structures are like high-efficiency linguistic tools. They help define expectations, frame tasks, streamline opinions.
Make feasibility clear very quickly.
Right. They smooth out the introduction of judgment into the conversation. But defining effort is one thing. What happens when the effort just stops? Whether it's physical effort or abstract struggling.
Well, that brings us neatly to our next major challenge area, the phrasal verb of cessation. Give up.
The phrasal verbs. Everyone's favorite nightmare.
They certainly can be. We know that take a verb we think we know, like give, combine it with a simple particle like up, and suddenly, poof, a totally new meaning.
One that often seems completely unrelated to the original verb.
And give up is perhaps one of the most critical, most common examples of this phenomenon.
So for listeners aiming for that native-like precision, just memorizing the definition to stop trying isn't enough, is it?
Not really. You need to feel the semantic load, the meaning carried by that little particle, up.
Okay, break that down. The meaning of up in give up.
Let's really analyze the core concept here. Give, at its root, implies a transfer, right? handing something over.
Okay.
And up, as a particle, often implies direction away from the ground, or maybe away from the center or completion thing. Eat up, use up.
Right, finishing something.
So when you combine give, transfer, with up, away, completion, you get this figurative meaning of abandoning something, surrendering it, relinquishing it.
So you're transferring your effort or your hope
Yeah.
or your ownership up and away from yourself.
That's a great way to visualize it. You're releasing it.
Yeah.
And this is crucial for avoiding a very common error.
What's the error?
Just using give instead of give up. If you say, I gave my job, well, that sounds like you gifted your job title to someone, maybe wrapped it with a bow.
Right.
Eh.
Doesn't make sense.
But if you say, I gave up my job, everyone understands immediately. You resigned, you relinquished it, often implying it wasn't an easy decision. Maybe there was a struggle involved.
Wow. So that tiny word up carries all that weight. Cessation, release, maybe even struggle.
It carries a massive semantic load. It completely transforms the meaning of give.
Okay, and the analysis mentioned transitivity.
Yeah,
How does that play into using give up correctly?
right. Transitivity basically asks, does the verb need a direct object? Is it acting on something specific, or is it acting more generally?
So give up something versus just give up.
Exactly. If it's transitive, you are giving up a specific thing, maybe a bad habit, a physical object, a claim, a right.
Like giving up smoking.
Yes. But if it's intransitive, you simply give up, period, meaning you stop trying. And this intransitive use often needs another preposition, usually on, if you're specifying the goal or person you stop trying for.
Okay, so give up on someone or give up on a project.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The transitivity dictates the sentence structure that follows. Let's explore the transitive use first. Scenario 1. Quitting a habit or effort. You mentioned smoking.
Yeah, or like she decided to give up sugar for a month. Sugar is the direct object.
Perfect. The object sugar is clear, and the use of give up here signals a conscious, deliberate stop, a definitive halt to eating sugar. Now, let's compare give up to a close synonym like quit.
Well.
What's the difference in feel?
If you say she quit smoking, it sounds maybe more neutral, clinical.
I agree. But if you say she gave up smoking, doesn't that feel different?
Yeah, it does. It sounds like there was more of a struggle involved.
Right.
Like she overcame something, a personal battle.
Exactly. Give up often carries a stronger emotional resonance. It implies that a sacrifice or a significant effort was required to make that transfer up and away.
That emotional depth is really key. It makes give up a much higher impact phrase than just stop or quit.
It really does.
So if you're an intermediate speaker and you say something awkward like, I stopped coffee, it just sounds wrong.
Right.
But if you say, I gave up coffee, boom, instantly you convey the commitment, maybe the difficulty, the whole backstory in just 2 words.
That's the power of the correct phrasal verb.
Okay, moving to scenario 2, admitting defeat or surrendering. This is more of a competitive context, conflict.
Often, yes. Think about debates, arguments, political fights, sports. If someone refuses to give up the fight, what does that signal?
Resilience, tenacity, they're not backing down.
Exactly. And conversely, when someone does give up the fight, the phrase efficiently summarizes the end of the contention.
Like in a siege scenario from the outline, the commander gives up the castle.
Yes. He's relinquishing physical control, usually under pressure or duress. The up signifies the release of that control. But here's a subtle point, maybe for more advanced learners. Sometimes native speakers use give up simply to mean relinquish control or possession without the strong negative connotation of defeat or failure.
Oh, so?
For example, you might say, oh, I gave up my seat on the bus so the elderly lady could sit down.
Ah, right. That's not defeat, that's voluntary politeness.
Precisely. It's a voluntary act of relinquishing something you possess the seat, but it fits the core transfer away concept. It's not surrender in a fight, but it's still giving up the seat. Understanding that nuance shows real mastery.
Okay, that makes sense. And that leads us nicely to scenario 3, the intransitive use. This often needs the preposition on, right?
Usually, yes, if you're specifying what you stop persisting towards. This is about abandoning hope or stopping trying.
The example was, after searching for hours, we had to give up finding the lost keys.
Right. Here, give up itself means stop trying. The object of the stopping is the action finding the lost keys.
But you said the really powerful emotional context comes when we add on.
Yes. Think about phrases like, don't give up on your dreams, or, perhaps more poignantly, I never gave up on her.
Ah. So adding on directs the cessation of effort or hope towards a specific goal, or Importantly, a person.
Exactly. If you just give up, you stop your own effort. If you give up on someone, you stop believing in them, stop supporting them, stop maintaining hope for them. That tiny preposition shift is huge
A
emotionally.
massive difference in meaning and impact.
It really is. And this brings up an important point about naturalness. While you could maybe use more formal verbs like abandon or relinquish in some of these situations,
That sound pretty stiff in conversation.
very stiff. Give up is almost always the natural conversational choice. Mastering the full phrasal verb and knowing when to add on, especially when talking about persistence toward the person or an abstract goal, that's what really moves your speaking beyond just functional language.
In that realm of nuanced, fluent communication.
Exactly, that's the goal. And just a practical tip. If you're practicing this, try using give up in the past tense. Gave up. Say it out loud. The sound of those two words together, gave up, often feels much more decisive, more final than just saying, I quit. It helps reinforce that sense of definitive cessation we've been talking about.
Good tip. Feel the finality in the sound. Gave up. Okay, fantastic. We've tackled defining effort with it's easy, difficult to, and expressing the cessation of effort with give up. Now, let's shift gears completely. Let's get concrete, physical. Let's talk about movement.
Into the world of getting around.
Yes,
Sorry, yeah.
and here's where the rules often feel the most arbitrary to learners, but you mentioned there's a simple principle.
Derived from the source material, yes. A principle that, once you grasp it, unlocks immediate accuracy and gets rid of the guesswork.
I'm talking, of course, about mastering those 4 gets of transportation. Get on, get off, get in, and get out.
The Fab Four of phrasal frustration for many learners.
Uh-huh, exactly. For anyone striving for that native fluidity, this set is a huge stumbling block because the difference between on and in seems so subtle.
It feels subtle, but the distinction is actually quite logical. It's based fundamentally on the geometry of the vehicle or mode of transport.
Geometry. Okay, explain that.
It's entirely about geometry and your spatial relationship to the transport device. It's not just random idiom you have to memorize blindly. If you internalize the spatial logic, you'll pretty much always get it right.
Okay, I'm ready for the logic.
We identified 2 main rule sets based on the analysis, the on-off rule and the in-out rule.
On, off versus in, out.
And the crucial distinguishing question is this: can you generally stand up and walk around once you're inside or on it? Or are you pretty much confined to your seat, and did you have to kind of bend or crouch to get into that confined space?
Stand and walk versus crouching and fine. Okay, let's start with the on-off rule then. Which types of transport does this cover?
This set, get on and get off, is generally used for vehicles where you can stand up and move around once you're aboard, or for things that are fundamentally open platforms or surfaces that you ride on.
Okay, so big things, public transport.
Exactly. Buses, trains, planes, commercial ones, subways. Also, things you physically mount or ride on the surface of. Motorcycles, bicycles, horses, even surfboards or skateboards.
Ah, okay, so the movement is fundamentally onto a surface where you remain relatively upright or exposed.
Precisely. You step onto the platform or surface. So let's look at scenario A, public transport entry, using get on. When you board a large vehicle like a bus or train, you usually step up and onto a floor or platform.
Right, so we need to get on the 9-point train, or let's get on the bus at the next corner.
Perfect. Think about a horse. You swing your leg over and onto its back. Get on the horse. The preposition on describes that movement relative to the surface.
And logically, the opposite is for exiting these things. Scenario B, public transport exit, using get off.
Makes perfect sense. Make sure you get off at the next stop. You are moving off of that surface or platform you were previously on.
So if I said, I need to get out of the train, that would sound weird to a native speaker.
Definitely jarring, because the implication of out of is that you are in a small enclosed space, which isn't how we perceive being on a train carriage where you can walk up and down the aisle. You were on the train's floor, so you get off.
On the floor, off the floor.
Got it. Now let's contrast that sharply with the alternative, the in-out rule.
Okay, so this must be for the other types of vehicles, the smaller ones.
Exactly. This set get in and get out is typically reserved for smaller, more personal vehicles. The defining characteristic is that they are enclosed spaces where you generally cannot stand up or walk around. And crucially, you usually have to bend, duck, or lower yourself somehow to enter or exit.
The bending and ducking is key.
It signals entry into a confined, enclosed interior.
So what kind of vehicles are we talking about here?
Primarily cars, taxis, vans, maybe small enclosed boats, personal helicopters.
Things you sit inside in a more contained way. The geometry dictates the phrase again.
Precisely. So, scenario C, personal vehicle entry, uses get in. because you have to lower your body, duck your head, move into the enclosed space of a car. The natural verb is get in.
Like, hurry up and get in the car, we're late.
Exactly. If you told someone to get on the car, what would that imply?
Haha. You're telling them to climb onto the roof or the hood.
Right. It sounds completely different, potentially comical or nonsensical. The preposition defines that spatial relationship.
Yeah.
It means inside the enclosed passenger compartment.
And following the pattern, scenario D is personal vehicle exit using get out.
Yes. The exit involves reversing that action of entering the small, confined space. You have to maneuver yourself out of it.
You opened the door and slowly got out of the taxi.
Perfect. The key differentiator remains that necessary change in posture. The bending, ducking, maneuvering into or out of that restrictive enclosed space.
Okay, the stand versus crouch, walk around versus confined rule seems like a really useful general guide. That feels like the aha moment.
It is, for most common situations. It organizes these 4 phrases very effectively.
But,
Yeah.
there's always a but. What about tricky cases? Exceptions. The outline mentioned challenging the simple rule.
Ah, yes, the edge cases. That's where we separate good understanding from truly native-like intuition.
Okay, hit me with one. What about something like a really big pickup truck? Or maybe a large SUV?
Good one.
You often have to climb up a step, maybe even 2, to get into the cab. That feels like getting on.
It does feel a bit like climbing onto something.
But once you're inside, you're enclosed in a cab, sitting down, much like a car. You can't stand up or walk around. So to get on the truck or get in the truck?
That is exactly the kind of ambiguity that trips people up. The geometry seems mixed. You climb up but end up enclosed in.
So what's the verdict? What do native speakers typically say?
Here's the refinement to the rule. The in-out convention for vehicles generally prioritizes the nature of the passenger space and its typical use once you are inside.
Ah, okay. So not just the entry movement, but the state after entry.
Yeah, exactly. Since a pickup truck's cab, no matter how high off the ground, is still a standard, fully enclosed passenger area designed to hold just a few seated people.
Like a car's interior.
Precisely. It defaults to the in-out rule based on that enclosed, seated confinement. You have to sit inside it. So overwhelmingly, native speakers will say, you get in the truck and get out of the truck.
Despite the climbing step.
Mm.
Okay, so the enclosed and seated aspect wins over the climbing up aspect for trucks and SUVs.
That's the typical convention, yes. The enclosure rule tends to be dominant for personal vehicles, and this same refinement helps with aircraft. Think about it.
Okay. A huge commercial jetliner, like a 747.
You walk upstairs or through a jet bridge onto a floor. Once inside, you can stand up, walk down the aisle, go to the restroom.
So following the rule,
Yeah.
you get on the plane and get off the plane.
Correct. Now, what about a tiny little 2-seater Cessna plane?
Okay, I've seen those. You definitely had to duck your head, squeeze yourself into a very small seat. You can't stand up.
Right. It feels much more like getting into a car cockpit.
So for a small plane like that, you'd probably say you get in it and get out of it.
That is generally the convention, yes. The size, the confinement, the inability to stand or walk around those factors make in-out feel more appropriate for very small aircraft, contrasting with on-off for large commercial ones.
So the stand versus crouch, walk around versus confines rule holds up pretty well, even with these nuances, if you prioritize the state inside the vehicle.
It does. It's a very robust guideline. And connecting this back to the bigger picture, why obsess over on-off and out? Because mastering this specific set makes your English sound immediately more natural.
It's a high-frequency error.
Extremely high frequency. Using the wrong preposition for transport just jumps out at a native speaker's ear. It signals learner very clearly.
So by internalizing this geometry rule, stand versus crouch, enclosure versus surface, you're doing more than just memorizing verbs.
You're demonstrating that you understand the inherent spatial logic within the English ellipsoid. You're starting to think like a native speaker about movement and space, not just translating enter or exit from your first language.
It's about embedding that idiomatic precision, moving from just functional language to truly fluent conversation.
That's the leap we're aiming for.
Okay, brilliant. Let's take a moment then to quickly recap these knowledge nuggets we've extracted. We've gone deep into a key structure and some really high-frequency, tricky phrasal verbs. And the goal, as always, was efficiency, focus your energy where the payoff for fluency is greatest.
Absolutely. So a rapid synthesis for you, the listener. What are the key takeaways here? First, that structure. It's difficult to. Remember, its main job is efficiency and framing.
use that impersonal it.
Yes. Use it to make an objective-sounding, immediate statement about how hard or easy an action is. It keeps the conversation flowing smoothly. Avoids that clunky "to do X is hard" phrasing.
And remember, you can add modifiers, like surprisingly, relatively annoyingly, for nuance.
Good point. Add those adverbs.
Okay, second big takeaway, give up.
The powerful verb of cessation. Key things. Never forget the particle up. It's essential.
It carries the meaning of transfer, release, relinquishment.
Exactly. Transferring effort, hope, possession away from yourself. And distinguish your usage carefully.
Are you quitting a habit, like giving up chocolate? Transitive.
Or are you stopping your persistence on a goal or person, like giving up on the project? Intransitive, needing on.
And choose give up over just stop when you want to convey that extra emotional weight, finality, or sense of struggle overcome.
Well summarized. And third, those 4 gets of movement. Get on, get off, get in, get out.
You've simplified this. The geometry rule is key.
Remember the core distinction. Large vehicle where you can stand walk or an open surface you ride. Bike, horse. Use on-off.
The small, enclosed vehicle where you have to crouch, bend to enter and stay seated. Car, taxi, small plane. Use in-out.
And remember that for personal vehicles like trucks or SUVs, the enclosed, seated nature inside usually makes in-out the winner, even if you have to climb up a bit. Confinement trumps step height.
Got it. On-off for stand-walk surface. In-out for crouch site enclosed. So let's bring it back to the listener. Why should you really care about diving this deep into what might seem like small grammatical points or phrases?
Because they aren't small in practice. These are the absolute building blocks, the scaffolding of natural, everyday, high-frequency conversation. They are everywhere.
Right. And mastering them isn't just about being correct. It's about efficiency in your own learning.
Exactly. Mastering these specific points allows you to gain fluency much faster, more thoroughly. When you speak, you'll be communicating with greater accuracy, sounding more natural.
You're focusing your limited study time where it gives the biggest bang for your buck, basically. Avoiding that awful feeling of information overload from trying to learn everything at once.
Precisely. Strategic learning.
We know that things like phrasal verbs and these impersonal structures can feel like a real nightmare for learners. It can make a whole journey towards English fluency feel like this incredibly long, exhausting marathon.
It can feel overwhelming.
But focusing intently, like we did today, on these specific, super common phrases, really understanding their core function, applying simple organizing principles like the stand versus crouch test or feeling the weight of up in give up.
It changes the game.
It really does. It turns that marathon into a series of short, manageable, and incredibly effective sprints. Each time you use one correctly, you build confidence, you accelerate your fluency way beyond just memorizing vocabulary lists.
It's about understanding the system, not just the parts. And that strategic approach, thinking about how these pieces fit together, leads perfectly into our final provocative thought. Something for you to mull over on your own.
Okay, leave us with something to chew on.
We spent time today looking at how it's difficult to describe a challenge,
Right.
and how give up describes stopping the effort needed for that challenge,
Yep.
and how the get verbs describe movement, sometimes literal, sometimes figurative, like getting to the next level.
Okay, I see where this is going. Combining them.
Exactly. Think about combining these concepts naturally. Imagine you're advising a friend who's really struggling with something complex. Maybe it's advanced physics. Maybe it's learning a musical instrument, anything. How could you naturally weave together all 3 of today's structures to give them some succinct, maybe encouraging advice?
Okay, so I might start with acknowledging the struggle.
Using which structure?
Look, I know it's difficult to grasp quantum mechanics,
Good start. Now, the advice about persistence.
but whatever you do, don't give up.
Nice. And
Yeah.
the consequence or goal related to movement, maybe figurative movement.
Because if you stick with it, you'll eventually, I don't know, get into the right mindset or
Yeah.
get on to the next stage of understanding. Using get figuratively there.
Perfect. See how they can weave together? We know it's difficult to do X, but don't give up trying on it, because that's the only way you'll get to the next level, the solution. Playing around with how these structures naturally interconnect in advisory or explanatory sentences really reinforces your mastery of all 3 types we discussed today. It shows you're not just using them in isolation.
That's a great exercise. It ties everything together nicely. Well, thank you once again for sharing your sources with us for this deep dive. That was incredibly useful. Now go forth, apply these principles, focus on that geometry, feel the weight of up, use it wisely, and make your English sound truly effortless.